My own view personally is that, this product is so good that the major challenge isn't like, how do we figure out sort of another mousetrap on how to make money? It's really getting like really sharp on who our brand is, building out the best possible marketing messages that people understand the impact that it can have on their life.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Darren MacDonald, CEO of Tonal. In this episode, we discuss the company's AI-powered strength training system, the evolution of connected fitness, and the future of resistance training as medicine. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is presented by EGYM. EGYM's smart fitness ecosystem is transforming healthcare through exercise, combining strength equipment with AI-powered software and corporate wellness platform WellPass. It's leading the shift to proactive, preventative health. Learn more about EGYM's intelligent workout solutions at egym.com. Hi, Darren. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Excited to chat. Fairly new in the CEO role at Tonal. I think listeners will be definitely familiar with the company, but maybe just to kick things off, can you talk about what led you there, your experience, and what it's been like getting acclimated to the role?
Sure. Yeah. So I took over, it was almost 4 months ago exactly. And I'm super excited to be at the company. I mean, I think it's the best strength product in the market, which is the thing that got me to join the company. I was a customer even before I joined. So I knew the product really well. And, I've always been an athlete. I've always lifted. As I've said before, there are days that I've skipped the treadmill, but there's hardly a day that I've skipped doing resistance training. So the product had enormously high NPS scores and seems like it's got a lot of runway in front of it. So I was super excited to join the company.
Yeah, it's one of, if not the most innovative pieces of strength training equipment on the market. I think there's maybe, and you can tell me, some disconnect or hurdle between what people might think of as strength training, going to the gym, lifting weights, kind of picking heavy things up and putting them down, which is certainly my experience. I have a home gym, which is barbell and weights and kettlebells and things like that. So what is it like kind of getting people to maybe shift that mindset? Like, hey, it's all right here in this kind of like one wall mounted unit. Is that a challenge? And how do you articulate that value?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think about things in kind of three different key ways. I mean, one is you've got the entire gym sitting right on your wall. So you do 4 lifts with Tonal, we can automatically lay out 280 lifts for you and all the weights for you, which is, I think, incredible. Second, we think we've got the best coaches in the category. I mean, they're amazing. And then the third is really the thing you just said, which is the convenience of having it in your home, which is, once you make the commitment to put it on your wall, it's a beautiful device. Once you make that commitment, people end up using it. So we've got really the best retention rates in the entire category, far and away. We think anybody that we've tracked, significantly better, because people really do see the effects that it has on their body and on their ability to gain strength. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit is the average Joe going into a gym a couple days a week or in a hotel gym or whatever and grabbing some barbells or a dumbbell, whatever, and trying to lift, you're never kind of on that efficient frontier. And the thing that I love most about Tonal is the fact that we use predictive weight technology to we do all of the mental load for you, all the hard work around kind of tracking how much you're lifting and how many reps, et cetera. It just happens automatically. And we're looking at 500 data points per second to figure out exactly what that looks like based on how much velocity you've got at any given weight. And it just takes all the mental load off of it. And so it just allows you to sort of compound these effects even faster, getting stronger and stronger. So anyway, that's why I love it. And I think that's why our members love it as well.
For anyone who does happen to have the experience or maybe there's a certain level of education, right, that comes with strength training more than running. It's put your shoes on and go. Some people look a little bit more efficient than others, and maybe you can get a couple degrees better or not. But with strength training, it's you get seriously injured if you're not doing it correctly. But after that, there is all the things you're talking about, progressive overload, and are you increasing it in eccentric and concentric movements and all this stuff that, again, if you're somebody who's experienced strength training, that. For somebody who's not, maybe you don't, is that kind of like education piece built in, or does it just happen automatically and maybe users don't even know why it's happening or what's happening? They just know that like they're getting results.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a learning phase. I mean, as you said, it's not a treadmill. You don't like look at it and know exactly what you have to do. I mean, there's arm articulation and how do you get into and out of certain movements. But I would say is like one of the things that people really love about it is the fact that it's just like you get walked through it. There's no like, oh, I've got to figure this out on my own. We walk you through the whole process. We tell you what chains mode is, and we explain things like progressive overload and hypertrophy and all these things that sort of matter in the world of resistance training. And and it's safe, right? So people who are a little bit older, we will take the weight off if you've got a barbell and you go like this, or if you hold it for 5 seconds, right? Like, and so it's a more safe and effective way to train as well. So there is an educational component of it, not only how to use the trainer itself, but also resistance training as a whole. But I think what we do is sort of make it familiar and easy for people to get through. Like our coaches come across as being sort of there connected in a one-on-one format with you and, help you through it in a way that doesn't make you feel like you may feel in a gym, which is like, gosh, are people looking at me? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? We sort of take all that away.
The kind of product and technology component, which I definitely want to talk more about. There's also kind of the growth, sustainable growth, unit economics, all those things that also probably in some ways created the opportunity for you to come into this role, not only tonal, but kind of like the connected fitness category, confronting its share of headwinds kind of post pandemic, looking at like, hey, what does this market look like, in normal times, maybe not at home times? What is the current state of the business? What are some of those challenges? And you said the kind of white space that a lot of runway to fill, but also kind of challenges you have to confront in doing so.
Yeah. I mean, connected fitness has had a bit of a ride, right? You look back through the COVID periods and, really kind of massive growth as people weren't sure what was going to be happening in the world. One thing that's gives me a lot of optimism is the fact that like all of our cohorts from 2018 when we launched through today operate exactly the same. So unlike other businesses where there was like, think about retail, people, were scared to go into stores. So they ended up just purchasing online. And then there was a flood back to stores. And so all these businesses just went on this huge roller coaster. Our business has been very, very stable in terms of like how people have used this across each individual year. Generally speaking, we sell a trainer. Our Tonal 2, which we've just launched, is $4,300, and then we have a subscription that's $60 a month thereafter. What's great about it is if you compare that to like a higher end or even a mid-level gym membership, it's cheaper than that. If you put one in, my wife uses ours. Occasionally we have friends come over and use them as well. The cost for somebody on a per month basis is actually like it's pretty low, to be honest, all things considered. So that is the business model. And really, our focus right now is just trying to get awareness out and just build more awareness in the market. Because when people buy the thing, as I said to you earlier, I mean, they use it. If you look at it just kind of on an outcome base only, you would say compared to other pieces of fitness equipment, kind of across the spectrum, resistance training or otherwise, like people use our product. And so it's really about just driving as much awareness as possible.
Yeah, it's huge getting, just breaking through and standing out and like I said, communicating that value. Are there specific channels or initiatives or like growth levers that you're thinking about? Hey, this is what's working, or maybe this is something new that we're trying. What does that look like in terms of achieving that goal?
Yeah, look, when I joined the company, people were like, "Oh, that's the LeBron company," because everybody knows the ads, or the Serena company, which was kind of like our breakthrough moment in trying to get people aware of the company. I think, in some ways, that was really helpful for us. In other ways, people are like, "Oh, is this just for professional athletes?" I mean, the answer is it's great for lots of groups of people that are actually not necessarily professional athletes that may or may not have woken up looking like that, So you think about people who are on GLP-1s, right? Which is something we think a lot about. Like the amount of muscle that you lose versus weight is asymmetric. And so you actually have to spend more time doing resistance training in order to preserve muscle. Think about people who are like active agers, right? My mom is 80, she's 83 years old. And Like frailty is a real thing, and it's a real problem. And so people are now recognizing the importance of doing resistance training earlier. And so our ability to sort of target these groups and these subgroups with the right message about what we're about in the right channel is really kind of like what we're all about right now. It's not a scattershot program, right? Like we want to sharpen who our brand is and make sure that it's effective for customer segments, but we want to make sure that it shows up in the right way for a number of people who can benefit from the product. So, we do lots of upper funnel marketing. Really we're pretty much into kind of all channels. And right now we're just sort of shaping, what we do at the top, introducing people through awareness building, just trying to move them down through the funnel, progress them through the funnel, and eventually sort of get that commitment escalated to the point where they end up purchasing the product. And, having brand new creative in market, which I think was really, really impactful, as well as Tonal 2, a brand new product that has like all these great features to it, has been enormously helpful in helping to kind of create that awareness and get people to purchase.
You do sit at this like very unique kind of the rise of strength training for longevity and health span, GLP-1s, different demographics, like you said, aging populations, but also women now taking to strength training, I think in a way that they previously have not, like, and then just like all across the spectrum for different goals, other than, hey, can I look like Arnold or, bodybuilder X, or just like, can I set a new like max rep on the bench? Like it's just
Right.
fundamentally like changing in terms of
Yeah.
how people think about training. The challenge then becomes, like you said, like, okay, how do I tell this individual with this goal that maybe previously didn't do that thing, like, hey, we can be the solution for you, which I think is like much more nuanced and gets lost when it's like, hey, can you run like meta ads, or can you get LeBron to endorse the thing? What are those conversations like with the marketing team and the creative that's like, hey, how do we dial this in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the, marketing efforts operate off of juicy insights, right? And one of them is that like resist training is not just for gym bros anymore. The days of like Gold's Gym working out on Venice Beach are, somewhat kind of long gone. And now, I mean, to your point, there's a lot more interest kind of across the spectrum. What's kind of interesting, I was talking to our head of performance the other day about, you look at people sort of like 65 as a dividing line, and you look at 65 and older versus 65 and younger. And if you compare sort of how people perform against, or look at like all cause mortality and the difference between like the bottom third and the top third of people age 65 and older in terms of all cause mortality. If you are in the top third in terms of strength versus the bottom third, you're something like improvements in all cause mortality of like 100% better.
Yep.
And if you look at cancer rates, it's like 400% better. And so the point is that like people are starting to recognize, when you think about like longevity amongst like an active aging group, it's super important for you to be doing resistance training. But like the thing that was really insightful for me is that the dividing line at 65 in some ways is used to sort of demonstrate the stark contrast and the effectiveness that it has amongst that 65-year-old. But the reality is, whether you're my age up until 65 or, like my niece or nephew's age up until 65, it's just linear. So the impact doesn't look as large amongst that group if you just look at them as a group. But if you begin to kind of like look at them over time, it actually is like pretty linear. And so whether you're sort of an athlete, that's looking to stay in shape, or you're, a dad trying to sort of fight off the dad bod, or, whatever group you belong to, there are real benefits in terms of sort of your metabolic health and your ability to sort of absorb glucose and things like that are really, really impactful to your long-term health that happen across all age groups. So all of these segments, we're sort of trying to define a little bit better and make sure that we have kind of the right message in the right market, in the right channel, to make sure that we're like really effective at hitting these kind of big topics for people.
Yeah, it's massive. I think I don't remember the exact study or metrics, but it is along the lines of like not only fall risk, which as you continue to age, like that's a massive issue, and but the impact of strength training in terms of basically once your legs go, then you become bedridden, and then it's
Yeah,
all downhill from there.
exactly.
So if you
Exactly.
can continue to maintain the leg strength, but also the posterior chain and all the things that go along with squat and deadlift and kettlebell swing and a lot of those hinging movements, things like that, like it has an incredible impact on your quality of life and your longevity of life as well.
Yeah, I think she exactly that point. I think it's the British Journal of Medicine that cited that 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 will suffer a fall that will impact their health in some way. And you're right. I mean, again, this has happened to my mom. She has some surgery because of something, and then like as she's recovering, she's getting weaker because she's been in bed for too long, and then falls, and then she tears her shoulder because she's fallen in the middle of the night, and then so now that's an injury that's problematic for her, and so it begins to spiral, and it just is like, again, because I'm going through it with my own mother, it's like it's such an important thing for people to make sure that they're staying on top of. And Tia and others will talk about building muscle through 50 and then preserving it sort of 50 on. But I mean, it's a real thing. It's not just a game of like, I would never tell anybody like cardio is bad, but I would say like, don't just do cardio, like do cardio and strength. And the further we go, the more that we begin to learn about the value of doing resistance training in addition to cardio. And like what that really represents what a healthy workout routine looks like.
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. You mentioned GLP-1s, which then brings us into like this. We've kind of talked about it as like prescription exercise or like strength training as medicine, where there's almost an inevitable future where it's like to be taking this type of medication. Yes, at this point, it's like recommended, suggested, encouraged that you're doing not only exercise but strength training and on some type of diet or nutrition plan. But could it be or should it be that it's required and you need to prove it, that you need to demonstrate that you're doing this? And something like Tonal, where you're actually able to track it beyond just like a wearable that could show any activity, who knows specifically what it is, but what you're doing in terms of your lifts and your strength and that you're keeping up with it. Do you think about like interoperability, connectivity with whether it's wearables or scans or just even healthcare providers for like the evolving role of like strength training and muscle mass?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've got a Whoop and an Aura and an Apple Watch. I'm like one of these people. I'm in the industry, so I definitely track it quite a bit. But I also have to say, I've worked out with groups. And I just met with a group yesterday, actually, in Silicon Valley that has this like program of like cardio, resistance training, nutrition, DEXA scans, food sensitivity, VO2 max. And I think what you're starting to see are groups that are starting to look, blood panel, right? And all these things. You're starting to see groups coming together to kind of look at health a little bit and wellness a little bit more holistically. And like having experienced, gone through work with some of these companies before, I just have to say, like the impact on kind of your whole health when you're looking at sleep, when you're looking at stress, when you're looking at how much you're working out, what you're putting in your body, like when you start to line these things up, the impact that you have on your body and your overall well-being is significant. And so I can't stress enough, it's not just one thing, right? It's not just resistance training, like abs are made in the kitchen, but also just like your overall, mental state is, dependent on you sort of eating well and exercising. So I think what you're going to see over time is organizations that are able to sort of like put all the pieces together, leveraging things like this that help you to get greater kind of awareness over, what your overall, health looks like. So I see that as definitely like a big macro trend of kind of this, all the data coming together in one place.
Beyond the data, which now certainly you can kind of choose like what you're feeding into and where it's going and how Tonal like sits in that ecosystem. part of this conversation, like whether it's cardio or holistic wellness or longevity, is like the other modalities. And obviously you have kind of some connected fitness companies saying like, hey, we're going to have a portfolio of devices and modalities. Tonal to this point has been specifically focused on strength. Is that going to continue to be the strategy? Like, hey, we're going to be the best at strength, as opposed to saying, hey, we're going to launch this whatever, all the different modalities in an app, and we'll do digital fitness that way. And we'll also have a device that does cardio this way. How do you think about that?
Well, I would say we just launched Tonal 2, which I'd love to tell you a little bit about, but I'm not going to pull back the full sort of curtain on all the things that we're working on. But I guess I would say this, like, we think of ourselves as a platform-based company. We have what we believe to be sort of the richest data set around strength in history. I mean, we're taking literally 50 measurements per second based on how much pounds you are lifting, the velocity, using our cameras for sort of imaging. And that opens up a lot of space for us in terms of additional modalities or adjacencies that we can move into. Physical therapy, like by and large today, is sort of like pick up the yellow band, the red band, or the blue band and do a bunch, grab a TheraBand and do a bunch of different exercises. Like, think about what we have as a platform, right? We have a resistance trainer that you can articulate in different ways to solve certain physical therapy needs. We have rep count, right? We have programming from coaches with a monitor right in front of you. We have velocity. We have range of motion. And now we have a camera that'll give you form feedback. So that if you're doing an arm exercise and you're supposed to be, like, let's say a shoulder problem, and your elbow is too low, we can ask that you raise it up even higher and actually tell you in real time around that. So I think there's lots of things that we can do in adjacencies that would be very, very powerful for lots of additional categories. But, to answer your question a little bit more directly, yes, we are exploring different modalities. Probably not ready to talk about them just yet, but we do think about our business and our trainer as a platform that allows us to do like really, really interesting things around strength and other exercise types.
We will certainly follow along when you're ready to announce that and let us know. But in the interim, like just to that point, talking about like showing up for people in different places and the problems that you can solve down that path, whether it's, B2B or commercial or physical therapy or sports performance or healthcare. Have you started putting machines in, call it that healthcare or sports performance setting, while maybe you're also exploring, hey, what does physical therapy at home with a Tonal look like? What does that kind of like strategy outside of the direct to consumer at home look like?
Well, the answer is yes. And I guess I would answer it in two different ways. One, there's been a concerted effort to get into some of those locations, both personal training and physical therapy. But I would also just highlight that a lot of it has come about quite organically. There's groups, that are leveraging Tonal almost exclusively for training and for physical therapy in their offices. And like, we sort of find out about them somewhat organically because they're popping up in multiple locations across the country, which is really, really powerful. And, which is a big piece of social proof for us and everything that we're doing. So, between the things that are popping up across the country where people are producing videos about how they're using Tonal, I think that's a super powerful thing. But I think also just on top of that, the fact that we've started up like the Tonal training lab in New York City, which is also like a really, really cool thing. So we just launched that. Have you been there yet by
I've
chance?
not. I've seen it on social media.
Yeah, it's like super, super powerful. We basically have live coaching and we've got, a number of Tonals inside of the building. And, so people can actually do live workouts, which is incredible. The impact that that's had on people who are traveling across the country to go in and experience it actually live. Like, we think there's something there to it. And, are super excited for what that's going to be.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. There's obviously hey, let's get it out in the wild so people can experience it and get their hands on it. And maybe if they're not familiar with it, get acclimated. But I think in this case, the training lab is just for people who already own a Tonal. Is that true?
It's not, no,
Okay.
you can book, even if you don't own a Tonal, you can go in and go and experience it, which is part of kind of the magic of what we're solving for, in the sense that unlike a treadmill, this thing is a little bit different, right? And I think to experience it before you make the commitment to purchase the piece of equipment is good for us, and it's good for customers as well. So we think this is like a really great opportunity to introduce the product to people.
For sure. There's the try before you buy element. that makes a lot of sense. And you said, hey, maybe there's something to this in-person experience. There's, a couple other of the connected fitness companies have used like, whether it was like studios or kiosks, like different ways of showing up in real life for people to experience it. But this like kind of group fitness element is different. Do you see potential for like, hey, let's open studios, even if it's on a temporary pop-up short-term basis, like roll these out in various cities and like, yeah, see what happens?
I think there's something there, and given the enormous demand that we've seen through the Tonal Training Lab, there's something there. What the format looks like, I think we're still trying to explore a little bit further. Certainly, there was an enormous amount of excitement. And again, we had people fly in from all across the country. So we think there's an opportunity to do this kind of on a more regional basis. And I think as a way to sort of demo the product to others, it's also pretty powerful to have this in a regional location where you can have people come actually see the product as well. So, what the final format is, I think we're still kind of mulling about, but we're pretty sure that there's something pretty positive there. And again, I would just add, and the fact that we're seeing this pop up organically where people are purchasing tonals because they use it as sort of the primary means of doing resistance training for coaches, for coaching their clients. We know that there's something pretty powerful. We just got to figure out exactly what the model looks like.
If it wasn't in this kind of like studio setting, so to speak, a personal trainer could use this in like a health club.
Yeah, I mean, we have done it for some more kind of boutique places. We haven't yet decided to go into kind of the larger format, the big box gyms. We're having some conversations that are pretty interesting, so that may change in the future. But look, we have barely touched hospitality. We think that's a major opportunity for us. There's a bunch of different sales channels that we think that we could develop. We give people an opportunity to sort of demo the product as well. And then again, organically, people are just buying the thing and buying them in multiple sort of like, putting 5 on a wall and offering it up as the safest way to do resistance training amongst, let's say, just like an active aging group. So it's happening. And like, what a great sign that is for us that it's happening like sort of organically. And now I think we're just trying to figure out what's sort of the best process for us to build a system around it.
You think now, like all the various things we've kind of talked about, whether it's the kind of trends in health and wellness broadly, the technology, the AI, the data, personalization, safety, getting into all the different channels. When you're communicating with the team, are there things, or even in kind of coming into the role, were you saying then like, hey, if we do these 1, 2, 3 things, or this one thing is the one big one that I want to check off, like how are you prioritizing this? How are you communicating that and saying like, this is what basically the roadmap looks like for success, at least in the short term?
Well, look, I really firmly believe we have the best product in the market, and for those that have used it, I think they understand like the gains and the impact that it has on their life is pretty significant. So when I think about prioritization, it's not that there's low hanging fruit. There's like fruit on the ground. We just have to go pick it up, right? And so answering the call when a big hotel chain calls and says, hey, we'd like to put this into all of our hotels or even into rooms, which is crazy. Now that's happening with, we haven't announced it yet, but they're already installed in like, a major hotel inside the rooms. Like, we just need to do more of that. And for all the sales channels that have been calling us because they're super interested in selling the product, like we just have to sort of organize ourselves and set ourselves up for success. So that's kind of the first stage for us in terms of prioritizing. We talked about a different modality or modalities, and that's something that we're working on as well. And then even having just launched Tonal 2, we're already thinking about what Tonal 3 looks like. And, like I think myself and the team have a 10x version of what Tonal 2 looks like, which is, it's going to be further out, but some really, really powerful thinking around what kind of innovative ideas we can bring to market.
We've already kind of seen not only connected equipment, but also specifically in the strength training category, start to look at like, okay, here's what the kind of full suite looks like with the wall mounted device. But hey, just like you said, with the data alone, with the camera alone, like what if we start to unbundle this a little bit? Is that also something when you talk about, hey, other opportunities that we're considering and mention your kind of like suite of data, most comprehensive? Is that also an option when you think about, hey, we want to reach more people, and that's potentially an on-ramp?
It's a strategy and one that's under consideration. If you just think about the data set that we have for, let's say, guys like you and I, like with a certain level of fitness, we're going to be able to do XYZ exercises in a certain manner, and we can then develop AI and make recommendations, personalized sort of workout experiences that maximize what sort of our fitness opportunity looks like, and hopefully, help you along your fitness journey even faster than other modalities. We can do that across all different customer segments because the data is just like, it's so big and so powerful. So you can imagine us being able to kind of like unpack that and potentially license it. We haven't made any firm commitments in that area. Certainly, there's a lot of interest in us doing something. And I think it's just sort of on us to decide sort of what the best course is for us. My own view personally is that, this product is so good that the major challenge isn't like, how do we figure out sort of another mousetrap on how to make money? It's really getting like really sharp on who our brand is, building out the best possible marketing messages so that people understand the impact that it can have on their life. Like, we just released like this new drop sets feature. And Joe, you work out, so you probably know what drop sets are, but usually it takes 3 or 4 people to do drop sets inside of a gym. We do it just directly onto our trainer. And we ran a study with Florida Atlantic University that you can build muscle up to 2 times faster just using that. So like by yourself with a tonal trainer, you can build up muscle up to 2 times faster. Like those are really, really powerful marketing messages. And so I think we just kind of got to tell our story a little bit better. There is lots of like green fields in front of us if we can figure out how to do that effectively.
It's interesting to think about that strength training has basically been around forever. Like pick up rock, put it down, like whatever, and put in pulley systems and kettlebells, like all these things have already always existed. But with it reaching kind of mainstream awareness among different demographics, there's not like this shared lexicon that people can talk about. Like when you say drop sets, even if you think about like other, whether it's a boutique fitness studio or like a specific modality, it's like when it clicks for somebody that's like, oh, efficiency, like I can do this and get better results faster. It's like, oh, I want that. Or convenience, like, oh, I can do this and get the, like, I think there will be a moment or a series of moments with strength training when it's like the eccentric, concentric, hypertrophy, like all these things clicks in a way that people understand, like, oh, even if I want to go to the gym, or even if I like this, or even if I previously did that, I can do this new thing, drop sets, and I can get better results faster. Like, and that's the thing versus like, all the other considerations or where are they in the funnel. Like, it's just like, oh, I can get what I want faster. And it's like in my house and like, here it is. So hearing you talk about, it's like, it's obvious, but it's like, I haven't seen that kind of like in market in a way where it's like somebody who's unfamiliar with this term would be like, oh, that's why I'm going to make this decision.
Sure. Yeah. And look, there's lots of companies that have entered into the connected fitness space in the last, 5 years, right? You know better than anybody. You know them probably better than I do. I will tell you, you can talk about a lot of things, but the proof is in the pudding. And again, when I talk about like the innovation that we're driving around like form and safety and muscle growth, and the fact like at the end of the day, like the pillar that I will stand on is the fact that our retention rates are higher than we believe anybody else in the space at scale. And so like at the end of the day, people are using the thing that we've put into market because it is really, really impactful to their lives. And so, the conversation around things like longevity were only happening among 65-year-olds, 5 years ago. And then now 45 and 50-year-olds are talking about, it's all they can talk about, right? And, talking about outlive and all. So it's like we're paddling into this wave with what we believe to be sort of like the best surfboard or the best product in the market. And, it's just a very exciting time for our company.
I guess coming full circle, there's the opportunity and then there's also the kind of expectations in terms of there was the kind of COVID experience. You mentioned like, hey, people continuing that retention is super high, people using the product. And then there's the, whether it's investors or, just kind of profitability for the company and looking into the future. How do you kind of align that, like, hey, this is where we are now, this is where we want to go, and maybe this is what the expectations are from you, the executive team, investors who are already around the table and like what it will take to continue to grow the company.
Yeah, I mean, Tonal's raised a lot of money to build what I believe, again, is the best product in the market. And I think the investments in innovation have like manifested themselves in something that's very, very powerful. Our investors want to see us continue like foot on the gas to grow and grow market share and continue to acquire more and more customers. I think the good thing is, from my part, I think we can have our cake and eat it too, in the sense that there's lots of top line opportunity for us because our penetration, if you just look sort of broadly at sort of connected fitness, or within even more broadly, people who want to engage in some form of exercise, is like, it's small. So we have a ton of opportunity for us to invest in sort of growing that share. At the same time, I think there's plenty of opportunities for us to manufacture in ways that are less expensive than they are today, or be more efficient with our marketing, or be sharper with kind of like all elements of our business. So I actually see an opportunity for us both to grow top line, increase share, reduce churn, do all those things that are going to be building our sort of net sub number, while we are improving overall profitability for the company, which just will allow us to kind of run downhill, right? Because I have alignment with our investors that we're going to continue to reinvest those things in greater awareness and just try to drive more sort of penetration of the market.
Yeah, it's in some ways, just getting started, like a lot of work and opportunities still to come, and continuing to get out there and grow more and more awareness and execute and get people to try the thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I literally could not be more enthusiastic about this company and about the role that I have within it. We've got a group of people in the company that are like super, super passionate about what we're doing for people's lives. Like, and I mean that, this is a mission driven company. We're not, selling TVs and speakers. We're helping people to live longer, healthier lives. And I think that's a very noble mission. And as you said, I think we're just kind of getting started with it.
Yeah. For people who maybe aren't familiar, maybe they want to learn more, where should they check Tonal out?
Well, the first place I would send you would be to tonal.com. There's plenty to learn about the product and kind of our coaches and what we stand for, and why we think the product is valuable. We have a series of retail shops that people can go to in some major cities. We're in a number of different marketing channels, but my suggestion would be to go to tonal.com and go check out Tonal too, which is, we think a really, really killer product. We took, from 200 to 250 pounds. So now we can handle, people want to lift more. We put a camera on it. You can now do aerobic workouts with it. And as I said, drop sets. There's a ton of new features with it. So now's a great time to go, explore what we offer.
Perfect. We will link everything up, encourage people to check it out, and appreciate you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fit.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fit.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.